Hello and welcome to the Run Testers. My name's Nick and this is our full review of the New Balance SC Trainer V3. So the SC Trainer V3 is the third version of New Balance's Super Comp training shoe, the shoe that's designed to be a training partner to its SC Elite racing shoe. It is a plated super trainer with an incredibly high price tag here in the UK where it's £230 and a more reasonable and in line with other shoes price in the US of $180. It weighs in at 278 grams or 9.8 ounces in a UK 9. It's got a 6mm drop from heel to toe and the heel stack height is 40mm, dropping to 34 at the forefoot. So it's the third generation of the SC Trainer and it sticks similar form factor in terms of the drop and stack height to the second version of the shoe, but you now have a PIBA/EVA blend midsole with the SC Trainer V3. This is the same blend that we see in the New Balance Rebel V4, so I think it's 20% PIBA, something like that, but whatever the exact makeup, you've got a bouncier, more responsive material in the midsole here than you had with the second version of the shoe, even though that was also called Fuel Cell. You've also got a carbon plate running through the shoe, as you can see from the bottom through that cutout, the Energy Arc carbon plate. That's now forked at the forefoot, which reduces a little bit of weight. And you can also see now that whereas the cutout on the SC Trainer V2 extended all the way to the forefoot and the plate actually had a bit of rubber on it to protect it from hitting the ground, cutout ends at the midfoot in the new shoe, so you've got a thicker wedge of foam under the forefoot with the SC Trainer V3. You have a Phantom Fit mesh upper with a little bit of padding around the heel and on the tongue, but in general quite a lightweight upper. And then you've got a rubber outsole with quite a thick layer and decent coverage in the key impact areas. Obviously a lot of exposed foam in the midfoot and that big cutout, but where it counts, you've got pretty good rubber on this shoe.
So then the New Balance team recommended that I go half a size up in the SC Trainer V3, so that's exactly what I did. I'd usually run in a UK 8.5, but for this test I went for a 9. Generally I found the fit pretty much spot on. I like that you've got a lot of room in the toe box. I'm a big fan of having ample wiggle room, particularly in shoes that are designed for the longer runs that you're going to do. But going that half a size up definitely makes for a baggier fit. You might say there's sort of a bit more volume overall all around the shoe from going half a size up. I did have some minor slipping in the heels, and I was to work a bit to get the laces locked and to get sort of near to a sort of dialed in heel hold. You can largely overcome it with a bit of lace prating, but if you're going to go half a size up, I would expect a generous fit here. Now, despite that, the uppers feel pretty secure across the midfoot. That's one area where it did feel nice and tight once you had lockdown. And what you're getting here is generally a good disappearing comfortable fit that feels airy and breathable with a good balance of kind of light but plush upper trimmings. Some people who go true to size have struggled for length in the shoe. Now, having gone half a size up, I'd say that that's really the preferable option here, even with that bagginess, and that is what I would recommend.
So the fit of the SC Trainer V3 was all good for me in my normal running shoe size. I think there is some people out there who found it a bit better going up half a size, and people have had problems with the upper in general, but actually I had no problems at all with the upper. It was really comfortable, kind of disappeared on the foot, a little bit of padding around the heel, but nothing that I found too noticeable. None of the heel rub or anything that you get with the SC Pacer V2 and the SC Elite V4. So I was very happy with the fit in my normal running shoe size.
Now, this is my first ever outing in a New Balance SC Trainer, so I don't have comparisons to draw on from the first two generations. But in testing, I've clocked around 20 miles in the V3, including a 5-mile progression run that moved from easy up to close to 5k pace for me. All of that has been on the road, and I've also thrown in the other miles. I've thrown in the kind of usual mix of paces from slow through to fast. Generally speaking, I really like what I see from this shoe. The step-in comfort in a shoe that's half a size up is great. It feels instantly like it belongs on my foot, airy, comfortable, disappearing, just an easy shoe to run, and all the good things that you really want from that first moment you lace it up. It's also surprisingly light considering the general kind of heft of the shoe, the size of it, not just on the scales, but I think it runs light on the foot too. In part that's down to some of the Goldilocks padding you've got here in the heels and tongues that provide for that kind of long haul comfort without adding too much weight. I'd say it's kind of comfortable overall without swaddling, like some shoes can really feel like they're sort of holding and swaddling. Now, if New Balance was shooting for an all-round, more versatile shoe, I think it's nailed it here. Provided you like a bigger stack, these have a good range. I really like the smooth, energetic ease. There's a calm energy to the ride. It's not boisterous and wild or overly aggressive like I found the Hoka Skyward X, which was just a bit out of control. I noticed the bounce of the midsole foam more than any kind of pronounced sort of spring or propulsion from the carbon plate. But there's a measure of control here that I also really like. The comparatively lower stack compared to some rivals in this space means that you keep some ground feel. I mean, it's not a ground contact shoe, but it's more than some of those other big stack shoes. There's a wide 4-foot base here as well that I think creates reliable landings. It's not as precise as some shoes that you might choose in place of these for faster efforts, but I think it still works. I find the shoe eases me through my transitions rather than firing me. Again, I like that. There's energy, but it's not aggressive. Another thing I like of the shoe, I enjoy the stiffish ride from the plate and foam combo, but then I'm not really a fan of shoes that are too soft and too cushiony and too pillowy, even for my recovery runs. Some may want more softness in a slow day shoe though, but I'd happily use the SC Trainer V3 for my slower plods. I can run slowly in a shoe like this. There's a bit more shoe here than I think some runners will want for faster efforts too, or for the fastest training miles that you might do. For the fastest training miles that I do, I tend to reach for something a bit more stripped back and agile. Think of the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4. When I'm pushing faster interval paces, those kind of things, I want something that's a bit less shoe. But this is excellent for cruising, and it will happily eat the majority of your marathon training miles in a marathon training block, sparing your legs while it's at it. Now I'm going to put it out there as well. I think some runners, particularly maybe if you're a heavier runner or you're looking at 4+ hours for a marathon, 4 to 5 hours on feet, you might actually get a lot of joy out of racing a marathon in these shoes. They've definitely got some super shoe vibes, but in a more controlled way, easier to run in. And even if they're not as all out or as lightweight as the top options in that kind of race shoe bracket, I do think that some runners could find these a good shoe to do the kind of training and racing for a marathon in quite happily. Now, I definitely consider the New Balance SC Trainer V3 for a road ultra like the Berlin Wall 100 or even the Comrades Marathon for that exact reason. And like the similarly expensive On Cloud Monster Hyper, that might be the only case where I think you can really justify the price using this to train and race for a 100-mile ultra, but more on the price later. One other note, the big energy arc groove that you've got here has kind of Stonecatcher vibes. It's really deep. I've not caught any yet, but it feels like it's just a matter of time before something gets locked in there.
On to the run test then, and the SC Trainer V3 is quite different to its predecessors, and for me that is a good thing. Like the first version of the shoe was this mega stack, higher than 40mm stack height shoe that was really bouncy, but I found just a bit too big and heavy, and I didn't really love using it for long runs just because it was a bit too big, but it was very bouncy. The second shoe was tamed down a lot, and I just didn't really like that shoe full stop. The midsole wasn't very responsive, it didn't feel very versatile or that fun to run long in either. Third version of the shoe, however, I do really like. I've done a lot of running in this shoe now. I'm up to about 110 kilometers using it during marathon training, where I think it does really excel, and I've really enjoyed it. Come to like it a lot more than I did after the first run, where I thought it was fine, but actually it's become a really enjoyable shoe to use for long sessions in particular. I think it has broken in a little bit, which certainly helps. I think you've got a little bit more bounce from the shoe after about kind of 20 or 30k, slightly less stiff as well, but all around it's just a really well set up shoe. I like this PEVA/EVA foam you have in this shoe and the Rebel. It's not really sinking and squishy and bouncy and all that, but it just gives you a nice blend of comfort and response with the plate in there as well. It does give the shoe just a really good ride and a versatile ride for those who are doing a lot of long miles. So I've done a real mix of runs in the shoe. I've done a few progression runs. I've done including a 15-mile progression run from easy to steady. I've done a couple of longer sessions, like I've done one where I did 4 times 4k around 340 a k pace, not flat out pace, but long reps. And then I used it for both runs on a double day last week, where I did 10 times 1k at 330 and then a 8k at 335 a k pace in the afternoon. And yeah, it's really felt good for all of those runs. And I think the key there is that there's lots of easy running, there's lots of steady running, and then the sessions are done at a fast pace, but not any kind of race pace for me, except maybe marathon pace on some of those K reps. But in general, it's very controlled, fast efforts that you will do a lot of during marathon training, rather than necessarily going all flat out. Long runs with long, hard sections, and that's exactly where the shoe excels. Like, it really does give you that level of bounce and controlled response that you want for those longer runs. It gives you comfort as well, protects the legs so you can bounce back the next day or even in the afternoon, and it doesn't necessarily feel like it's going to be flat out quick, but for that kind of speed work, it's really, really good. And then it can hoover up a lot of easy mileage as well if you don't mind doing that in a plated shoe. I'd probably prefer to use a non-plated shoe myself for that. Overall, I'd say the ride feels quite normal and understated in a good way though. So like compared to some of the shoes out there that have much more bounce, like the Mizuno Neo Vista, or a really fast, notably fast ride like the Hoka Mach X2, the Supercomp Trainer V3 feels like a good daily trainer, and that's kind of what you want. Like, it's a comfortable shoe, it protects you, you get a little bit of bounce, you can notice the bounce, but in general it just feels like a really reliable option that rises to match whatever you're doing in that run. So it can feel nice and relaxed on easy runs, and it does have a bit more pop when you are moving faster, up to a point. I think when you hit flat out paces, on the rare occasions I've done them in the shoe, that's where I think it doesn't feel as good as a flat out racing shoe or a light nimble shoe, or some of the best super trainers I've used this year, like the Mach X2 or the Endorphin Speed 4, which just have a bit more top end pace. I think like if I was lining up a session of like 10 times 1K at 320 instead of 330, for example, I think the shoe could do it. It'll be okay for that, but I'd prefer to be in a slightly nimbler shoe, a shoe that's built more for that kind of speed, rather than this, which feels a bit more cruisy. It definitely feels like a shoe that's geared up for long runs, faster efforts over long runs, not really hitting the kind of race pace you do in shorter events like 5K to half marathon. Here comes the verdict. I've really enjoyed using the SC Trainer V3. I think it's a cracking shoe, especially for marathon training, which is what I'm doing right now. It really does feel like a great option to have available to hoover up a lot of the mileage you'll be doing, especially kind of easy runs, steady runs, those longer sessions like I've talked about. I think it's pretty versatile in that kind of area. If you're someone who focuses more on short distance events and doing speed work related to that, then I think you will get a bit more versatility from other shoes that have more top end pace. But as a general trainer that can hoover up a lot of miles and move pretty fast, it does a fantastic job. In the US, the price is pretty good as well. Like, it's competitive with what you expect for a super trainer, and it's something you could certainly look at if you are marathon training as one of the better options out there as a versatile trainer. In the UK, the price is it's just a bit silly, isn't it? Like, I don't really know what's happened there, but I think it's priced out of the market at £230. Like, it's going up against, you know, proper super shoes, and it's 50 quid more expensive than, you know, other amazing super trainers, which I probably like a little bit more, like the Endorphin Speed 4 or the Mach X2. So if you see it in a sale, that's when we start talking about the SC Trainer again in the UK. But that price, like I say, is not really right. And if you're comparing it to the other really good super trainers, I do think the Speed 4 and the Mach X2 are a little bit superior in terms of their top end pace, and that gives them, you know, a really nice level of versatility if you are looking for a fast shoe in particular. I think the SC Trainer V3 is a bit more comfortable for cruising around on long distances. The upper's a bit more comfortable than the Mach. The ride's a bit more comfortable than that of the Speed 4, with a bit more foam under the forefoot in particular. So, like I say, it leans very much towards that marathon training efforts, but you can do all those in the Mach X2 and the Speed 4 as well. I think they're still shoes I'd look at getting ahead of this, but if you're prioritising comfort in your super trainer but still want to be able to do those longer sessions, it is a fantastic option. A few other shoes you might compare it to. So the Mizuno Neo Vista is a fair bit cheaper. It's another really cushioned super trainer. It's a lot bouncier and softer than the SC Trainer V3. It has a really great fun ride for easy runs and long runs. I think personally I'd lean a little bit more towards the SC Trainer V3 for the ride feel, just because it has a slightly firmer feel, more responsive feel, which I prefer for faster efforts and even for long runs really. But Mizuno is fantastic. Like, it's so fun to bounce around in that shoe. So if you're looking for a shoe that's more geared up for easy mileage, I'd say that's a better shoe, a lot cheaper as well in the UK. Superblast 2 is a better shoe as well, and cheaper, remarkably, in the UK. And especially as it's not plated, I think a lot of people might prefer to use that for all of the same kind of runs that I'd use the SC Trainer V3 for. The Superblast is also a really good versatile shoe for doing easy and steady paces and those longer sessions at kind of slower race paces in it as well. You know, you've got the plate in here, which probably gives you some kind of performance boost, but didn't feel it that much. Superblast is a lighter shoe, both really good options, and Superblast is somehow cheaper in the UK, so, you know, that's another option for sure. And if you're looking within the New Balance range, there is obviously the Balos and the Rebel as well, which are both, you know, really good shoes that are very versatile trainers as well without plates. The Rebel obviously has this foam and a lower stack with no plate. It's I used it again this week to remind myself of how much I like the Rebel. I think it feels like a higher stack shoe than it is. I do find it comfortable. I love cruising for easy to steady runs in that shoe as well. You do get more pop from the plate in the New Balance, and it has more protection and, you know, support for longer runs in particular. So again, with that marathon training idea in mind, I think it probably has a little bit more versatility as an all-round daily trainer, but the Rebel is a lot cheaper, a shoe I'd use for loads of the same runs. And if you are more focused on shorter events and want a fast training shoe, I think it would serve you just as well at a lower price. And the Balos is, you know, similar price, again, a bit cheaper in the UK, but somehow more expensive in the US, and that's a great fun shoe as well. It's a bit like the Neo Vista in terms of just being a shoe that I love running in because it's so fun to run in, really soft and bouncy, great for easy runs, long runs. Like, I think you can get a higher level of performance from the Trainer V3 for faster runs, especially holding fast paces over long runs, because it's got the plate in there, the more resilient foam in general. The Balos feels fantastic. It's very soft and bouncy, just probably veers a little bit too soft. It gets that slight bottoming out feeling if you are holding a fast pace in it for very long stretches, which is something you don't get with the FC Trainer V3 for sure, because it has that more resilient foam. But again, looking at easy runs, that kind of thing, the Balos is a lot of fun to run in. And again, no plate, which some people might prefer. So all around, definitely a shoe I've enjoyed running in a lot. Like, that's why I've done so many miles in it, and I'd happily keep using it for marathon training. I like the look of it as well. UK price is a complete no-no, but sure, it will be popping up in sales quite soon. And if it comes down to more like the price of things like the Mach X2, the Speed 4, it's a competitive shoe that I think very much is most competitive when it comes to marathon training, as a really good super trainer that does handle long runs and long sessions very well.
Verdict then, I really like this shoe. I think it's a very accomplished daily trainer with a decent level of cushioning that's not too soft, plus plenty of controlled energy that you're getting back from that midsole foam. Great for eating up miles on longer runs. There's a lots of versatility here too, and I think it would be a good weapon in anyone's marathon training lineup. targeting most of the sessions that you would do for a marathon block. However, if you live in the UK, it's really hard to shake the fact this shoe is extraordinarily pricey. At £230 is a lot of money for a training shoe, even a super trainer. Now, I get that there's premium foams, carbon plate tech in this shoe, and yes, there's an argument that some runners might even be able to train and race in the SC Trainer V3. So there is versatility and arguably kind of package value in that for some runners. But regardless of whether there's that tech in the shoe, I do feel like that's, it's asking a lot to shell out that money for this shoe. Now, if I ask myself whether this shoe offers that much more for its intended purpose than rival shoes, I'm not 100% convinced. I don't think it offers more marathon training versatility than cheaper shoes that can do the same job, the likes of the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4. To a certain extent, even the Hoka Mach X2 might be a shoe that some people could use for that. And I would say if there is a limit to this, it's definitely at the faster end of things. And if you like your recovery shoes at the really softer side, you're not going to get that from this shoe. You might still have to invest in another recovery shoe as well to cover that base. Now, it's a totally different story in the US, where I'd argue actually, because of the price, it's pretty good value for the versatility you're getting. And I would say if you're in the US, it's a cracking option for a marathon utility shoe. If it's £180 in the UK, I'd probably highly recommend it here too. In fact, I like pretty much everything about the shoe apart from the price. In the UK, it makes it hard to recommend. In the US, I'd say go give it a go.
That's our review of the New Balance SC Trainer V3. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Please do like and subscribe, ring the little bell, and we'll see you next time.